Here is a strange truth nobody mentions. Between 15 and 40,000 years ago, a wild canine species began reshaping its own face. Its purpose was simple, to make you stop on the sidewalk and momentarily lose your mind. And it worked perfectly. It still works today, every single day, on every continent, across every culture, no matter your language or upbringing. A hormone is involved, along with a nerve fiber, built specifically for this reaction, and a facial muscle wolves never developed. There is also a documented psychological phenomenon that makes you want to gently squeeze kittens out of pure, overwhelming love. None of this is random. All of it has been building quietly for thousands upon thousands of years without explanation. Almost nobody ever stops to ask why our hands move before our brains even register the decision. So, let us ask. Picture this moment. You see a dog across the street, a dog you have never met, sharing no history with you at all. Yet something old and wordless switches on inside you instantly. Your hand lifts on its own, your fingers curling forward. Before you consciously process anything, you are crouched on the pavement, cooing baby, talk to a complete stranger's golden retriever. It feels like the most natural thing in the world. And strangely enough, it actually is the most natural thing. This is not a dog person thing or a cat person thing, or something tied to growing up on a farm. It is cross-cultural, deeply neurological, and almost embarrassingly universal across every kind of person you could imagine. We reach for dogs, cats, rabbits, horses, capybaras, even the occasional bewildered lizard without a second thought. We see something fluffy, soft, and warm, and our hands simply go, with almost nobody able to properly explain why until now. The obvious answer is that animals are simply cute, end of story. But that cute instinct is far more complicated. When you see a creature with big round eyes, a small nose, chubby cheeks, and an oversized forehead, something specific happens. Your brain does not produce vague warm fuzziness. It enters a very specific neurological state scientists have studied for decades. The foundational idea came from Austrian ethologist Konrad Lorenz in 1943, who called it Kindchenschema, German for baby schema. His theory held that round faces, big eyes, small chins, soft features, and clumsy movement evolved in human infants deliberately. These traits hijack the adult brain, forcing it to protect and nurture the infant. Evolution is never subtle about this. It built a visual exploit directly into our neurological wiring, and simply called the result a baby's irresistible face. Lorenz's real insight, decades ahead of its time, was noticing these same features trigger identical responses in other species entirely. The brain performs no species check whatsoever. It sees round faces and big eyes and fires caregiving circuitry regardless. Suddenly, you feel a protective, almost parental, pull toward an animal you met 11 seconds ago in a parking lot. He proposed all this with no brain-scanning equipment at all, just careful, patient observation of people reacting to things. Decades later, researchers placed people inside fMRI machines and showed them photographs of baby animals to test his theory. Lorenz turned out to be essentially right. Specific brain regions lit up reliably. Every single time, across every test subject. The orbitofrontal cortex activated, along with areas tied to reward processing and structures linked to emotional weight and motivation. This is not a small, fuzzy effect buried in statistical noise. It is consistent, repeatable, and visible across populations. Looking at something cute is not passive. It is a measurable neurological event. Your brain treating it as truly important. Crucially, all of this happens before you have touched anything at all, because touch is an entirely separate layer stacked above it. This is where it gets really interesting, because human touch is far more sophisticated than people typically give it credit for. We think of touch as one single sense, but it is actually a whole collection of distinct sensory systems running simultaneously. Your skin is loaded with many types of mechanoreceptors, specialized cells tuned to pressure, vibration, texture changes, and temperature shifts. One particular type studied deeply only recently is called a C-tactile afferent, tuned to slow, gentle stroking. Specifically, it responds best to roughly 1 to 10 centimeters per second, not firm pressure, not sharp pain, not fast movement. Just that one narrow, deliberate band of speed and softness, perfectly calibrated for emotional, rather than purely physical sensation. When these fibers fire, they send signals to the somatosensory cortex, but also to brain regions tied to emotion. They reach areas linked to social bonding and reward, existing seemingly for one purpose: making gentle touch emotionally meaningful. Running your hands slowly across soft fur activates these fibers almost perfectly through texture, warmth, and gentle yielding resistance. Steady, consistent pressure completes the effect, as if fur was engineered specifically to interface with this exact sensory system. Petting a dog is not a metaphor for triggering a bonding pathway. It literally is one. Quite literally and directly. It is an ancient circuit built for social connection, now firing simply because of a Labrador standing on a sidewalk. The chemistry behind it has a name: oxytocin, the so-called love hormone, a label most neuroscientists find slightly tired. It actually does far more work than that simple phrase suggests, flooding your system during any positive physical contact. It surges when you hug someone you love, hold a baby, or engage in basically any kind of physical affection. Multiple well-designed studies show that just a few minutes of petting a dog produces a measurable spike in oxytocin. Making eye contact, or simply being near the animal, is enough to trigger this measurable spike in your bloodstream. Here is the almost unfairly wholesome part. The exact same spike happens in the dog at the very same time. You lock eyes with it, you pet it, and both of you are flooded with the neurochemical bonding parents to children. You walked up to a stranger's dog and accidentally fell a little in love with it. So did the dog. But step back, because there is another layer almost nobody considers. Why soft things specifically? Why fur and not gravel? Part of the answer is tactile memory, laid down in early childhood, long before conscious memory ever begins forming. Infants spend an enormous portion of their earliest existence pressed against warm, soft things: skin, fabric, blankets, and other bodies. The link between softness and safety gets coded into the nervous system before language, before conscious memory even exists. Soft equals safe, soft equals close, soft equals comfort, an association riding along outside conscious awareness for your entire life. Temperature plays its own underrated role too, signaling at a deep neurological level that something nearby is alive. Placing your hand on something warm and slightly yielding produces an almost immediate drop in measurable physical stress markers. Your autonomic nervous system reads the warmth as a living body nearby and quietly downgrades its automatic threat response. Then there is the sound. Cat purring has been studied extensively, and the closer scientists look, the stranger it gets. The purr comes from rapid laryngeal muscle movement, the larynx vibrating dozens of times per second on every breath. It produces a steady rumble typically between 25 and 150 hertz, most commonly clustered around 25 to 50. Frequencies in that exact range have shown up in clinical research promoting bone healing and reducing soft tissue inflammation. Physical therapy protocols using mechanical vibration at similar frequencies are now being developed specifically for that very purpose. A cat purring on your chest is not just noise. It gently vibrates you at a frequency that may encourage healing. Cats stroll around being accidentally therapeutic, sitting on your laptop, judging your bookshelves, doing nothing intentional for your benefit. Yet they passively emit frequencies that might be good for your bones, and we still find them utterly irresistible. Now consider the compulsive side of this, because it might honestly be the most interesting part of the whole story. Plenty of things feel good, and we still manage to restrain ourselves in public. Yet animals seem to be different. You know intellectually that you should ask before petting someone's dog, and that the cat already gave clear warnings. You do it anyway, largely because of approach motivation, a pull that arrives before conscious decision-making even begins. When your brain flags something as cute, soft, and warm, it fires nearly every reward signal available almost instantly. You are not consciously thinking, "I want to pet that dog." The motivational circuitry has already moved your hand. Your conscious mind is simply catching up to something your body already started. The same circuitry pulling you toward food. Sometimes that pull overshoots, producing something researchers now call cute aggression, which sounds alarming, but is actually fascinating. It is the urge, when something is overwhelmingly cute, to squeeze it, to say things like, "I could just eat you up." You make little mock-threatening gestures and grabby hands towards something you obviously have zero intention of ever harming. If you have ever felt an inexplicable urge to aggressively scrunch a puppy's face, that is cute aggression in action. Researchers at Yale studied this seriously and found it is not random at all, but a deliberate regulatory mechanism. It appears to be generated by the brain itself when positive emotion exceeds what the system can comfortably process. The brain manufactures a countervailing negative impulse as a kind of homeostatic correction, balancing the scales back toward manageable. That sudden urge to scrunch a puppy's face is your nervous system coping with too much positive feeling at once. Your brain is overwhelmed by how cute something is and is not handling it, especially gracefully, in that moment. Those mildly unhinged urges toward kittens are not a glitch at all. They are a sign. Everything is working correctly. It is also worth asking whether any of this is uniquely human. And the answer is, surprisingly, not really. There are documented cases of wild primates approaching other species with no obvious survival benefit attached to the interaction. They handle small animals carefully, engaging in what looks very much like play, displaying curiosity and gentleness consistently. Capuchin monkeys have been filmed doing this. Bonobos have been observed in contexts resembling remarkable cross-species socializing behavior. Captive great apes frequently form tactile, affectionate bonds with nearby animals, including dogs, cats, birds, and rabbits. Coco, the gorilla, famously taught American Sign Language, kept several pet cats across her lifetime, requesting them by name. She named them herself and handled them with consistent gentleness throughout their time together as companions and friends. When one of her cats died, she produced signs her researchers interpreted as genuine grief over the loss. A gorilla mourning, a small domestic cat, shows that touch is not a human invention. The drive runs deeper. If you want to see how ancient this really is, look at coevolution, because the human-dog bond is no coincidence. It is the product of an estimated 15 to 40,000 years of genuine, continuous, mutual biological adaptation between species. We have lived together, worked together, slept near each other, and touched each other long enough to change biologically. Dogs are uniquely attuned to human social cues in ways their closest wild relatives are not, even hand-raised wolves. Dogs spontaneously follow human pointing gestures and track human eye gaze with remarkable natural accuracy and consistency. They make eye contact with humans in a way functionally and neurologically distinct from how wolves ever do it. That eye contact triggers the same oxytocin loop already described, deepening the bond with every shared glance exchanged. Here is a detail that feels almost too good to be true. Dogs evolved a unique facial muscle wolves lack. It is called the levator anguli oculi medialis, responsible for the inner brow raise, that classic puppy-eyed look. When those eyebrows lift, something in your chest quietly caves in, an anatomical structure built specifically to produce that expression. It is not an accident. It represents thousands of years of selection pressure favoring dogs better at triggering emotion. These were dogs better at getting touched, fed, and kept close by the humans around them, generation after generation. The puppy eyes are not cute by chance. They are the product of figuring out what makes humans reach out. Dogs were not passively domesticated. They co-authored the entire relationship, and we essentially domesticated each other over time, which leads to maybe the most important part of all this. What happens when touch is suddenly taken away? Touch deprivation is a real, measurable, physiological stressor, and not just human touch specifically, any touch at all. During periods of enforced social isolation, people with pets consistently show better mental health outcomes and lower baseline cortisol. They show lower rates of depression and anxiety than people without animal companionship during those same isolated periods. Researchers tried separating whether this comes from abstract companionship or from physical contact itself. The evidence points to contact. It is the hand on fur, the animal settled in your lap, the warm weight pressed against your leg specifically. In hospitals, animal-assisted therapy measurably reduces perceived pain, lowers pre-procedure anxiety, and improves emotional well-being during recovery periods. Therapy dogs in schools lower stress responses in children, and just 10 to 15 minutes of touch shifts cortisol significantly. Maybe that is the real reframe here. We treat the urge to pet animals as a funny, endearing little quirk. It explains why you are 10 minutes late somewhere, because a dog ambushed you and you simply could not walk past. But what it actually points to is something older and far more serious than a simple, harmless quirk at all. Touch is how mammals signal safety to one another, regulating each other's nervous systems in a wordless, ancient language. It silently says, I see you, I am here, you are not alone, and everything around you is okay right now. For nearly all of human history, we lived in close physical proximity to animals, working, raised, and constant companions. Animals slept near us for warmth and protection and company, simply part of daily life, rather than something separate. The separation between humans and animals that feels normal today, the distance, the glass, the leashes, is recent. It is, in evolutionary terms, almost shockingly recent, barely a blink, against the scale of everything that came before. Our brains, our nervous systems, our entire reward circuitry have not caught up and may never fully catch up at all. It is still quietly expecting, on some old and stubborn level, to be near warm, soft, living things regularly. You were never going to walk past that dog. The only real question was always how many seconds it would take.